Hello everyone, welcome to Chasing a Murder. And before we get started, I want to ask you guys to please take a moment to like and subscribe and even comment. I would appreciate it. Right now, we are on part 73 of Life Beyond the Grave. The timeline, 2018, and Chad and Lori had just met at this Preparing the People conference and they hit it off. And Lori Vallow's interest was talking about premortal lives or pre-existence, also known as multiple probations. The Preparing the People conference that they were attending was about gathering and learning information. In the Preparing the People brochure, they say that they're bringing together a unique group of people who are preparing us for the future, just as millennial science is helping us understand why and how earthquakes happen. And come see and discover for the first time how Earth and all its celestial bodies were formed from water and the origin of weather, the true age of the Earth and human beings, and see how fossils form and learn about the Earth's real history. So what people noticed about Lori was her attraction to Chad and how this was not something that she would normally be attracted to. He was nothing like her type of guy. He wasn't the type of guy that she was ever interested in before. Lori's husband at the time, Charles Vallow, he was athletic built. He was a baseball player. Chad, he's none of those things. He's not good looking. He's not charming. Charles Vallow had a manly charisma about him, whereas Chad Daybell did not. He was more emotional and a lot whiny, if you ask me. He lives on fast food. He has a big family. He spends a lot of his time eating big family meals on Sunday. And he didn't make a whole lot of money. Lori and Chad, they stay in touch. And Chad Daybell, I think it's the second day after he meets her, it's October 27th, he's already Googling her name, Charles Vallow's name, and according to investigators, this will be the first time that he actually starts Googling the name Ned Snyder. So we find out later on from this investigator that it's October 27th, which is the second day of conference of 2018 through November 1st of 2019. Chad Daybell has a history of searches looking for dark spirits of Ned Snyder, and Hiplos. So, searches were conducted on January 28th of 2019. And they find he searched for Ned Snyder, 1996, death, Louisiana. Ned Snyder, Louisiana, born 1951, died 1996, as well as bodies possessed after original occupant dies. They say that these searches are actually conducted before Lori referred to Charles as Ned Snyder. So there you go. So second, he meets Lori, it seems like on a Friday, the 26th of October. And by Saturday, he's already Googling some very weird searches. Around this time, Julie says that, it was in the fall sometime that she and Chad were meeting quite often in 2018, and it begins to slow down dramatically. Julie says that she could connect to her clients, which Chad is one of those, and people like Chad, she can see their images of what they're seeing. For example, if it was porn or whatever. And according to Julie, she said that she was connected to Chad Daybell when he sees a vision of his wife Tammy dying in a car accident. She says that Chad had only wanted to meet for one session, and during that session, she thought that Tammy would have known about a lot of this stuff that Chad was sharing, but she doesn't. Later on, in a Eyes Wide Open podcast, she supported the fact she saw Tammy's death as well. She asked her angels to confirm her death, and she says they do. And it's very interesting because Julie says this topic comes up multiple times. But what Julie says is very contradictory. Pretty soon, Chad and Julie will start to have disagreements, and they will not be hanging out as often. Later in a polygamy podcast, Julie says that she didn't actually get the visions, that she got these visions of Tammy dying from his images, and that they weren't her own. Julie also says it's around this time that she's just learning about Lucifer's abilities. Not certain exactly what that means. So again, Julie says it's around the time that Lori comes into Chad's life that they start to have these little disagreements and kind of move apart. And this will even go into publishing rights and that sort of thing pretty soon. But though they have moved apart in this, so remember this, they will still have these little bickering things going on because they're going to have people they know, in common. And they're going to kind of share, this is what Julie says, this is what Chad says, causing Julie and Chad to move even further apart. In fact, we will get a glimpse of what Chad and Lori are teaching through some of her Julie's podcast. Because in these podcasts that Julie's sharing, I'm pretty certain that she's giving out warnings about this group of people that are telling others that they have the ability to tell you about your past lives. And Julie is warning people big time, don't trust on these people. Julie, well, this is what she believes. She believes that people adore her for her gifts, and people like Chad as well. And on Inside Edition, where she gives us a glimpse of what she thinks is going on around this time. She says that she noticed the big shifts in her friend Chad, and that Lori was like a groupie. Chad's groupie. She really looked up to him. That is one of the reasons I didn't want anything to do with her. I noticed Lori was like that with Chad, and quite a few people get like that. So she's basically saying that, a lot of people admire these gifted visionaries as celebrities, and people getting all because they don't have those gifts. She believed that Lori was falling in love with Chad from a distance, and that she wanted this spiritual guy or something, and that she was having her own marriage issues. And I'll mention this real quick, so just in case I forget later, but Julie Rose said the last time that she saw Chad in person would be December of 2018. Lori asked Chad to come up with this list and rankings for the people in her family, as well as a list of their past lives and how they were related and their progress. We don't have time to go through all of them, but I'll share a few. One of the things that Chad sends Lori is where he and Lori were married. He was James the Just, and she was Elena. And during that marriage and their past lives, they had 7 children, 4 sons, and 3 daughters. Kind of familiar, almost, to what he and Tammy has. He had also ranked several of her family members, including her children like J.J. Vallow, on how many past lives that he's had and his level of light or dark. J.J. Vallow was a 4.2. 4 lives and a level 2 light. Lori Vallow's niece, Melanie Boudreau, she was a 3 light. These documents were attached to the subject in the email, family history documents. He wrote, "Here are the family history documents you requested." Dated October 30th of 2018. It was around 11 a.m. So it was hardly even 3 days after she met Chad. I don't even think she had returned home from where she had gone to the conference yet. Lori was finding out that she was once the daughter of Jesus' half-brother, Judas. And it seems that he was able to connect and find, agree that Lori was once married to the prophet Moroni. It was in her third lifetime, when she was the daughter of Jesus, that she was married to James the Just. That was Chad's past life. According to Melenie Gibb, Lori Vallow had lived 5 lifetimes here on Earth itself, and many lifetimes overall in the universe. And these weren't the only emails that Lori was getting from Chad. He was sending her a list of things that they were going to do together. In the list, as it appears in the document: translate ancient records, write the book about translation process, identify locations in northeast Arizona for white camps, presidency of the Church of the Firstborn, help establish food distribution as tribulations start, and then delegate, ordain individuals to translation as the camps begin, provide supplies to righteous members of families. So this kind of gives you an idea of how Chad sees himself, and that he's actually gone with Lori and her self-perception of how God's given her powers to become the first female prophet. So the first 2 missions, remember, is translate ancient records and to write a book about translation process. And what it sounds like is they're going to do some translation from some book and incorporate it into their new church. And they will build off of translated beings as well. Do you remember the book of Enoch? This is the power of the actual president of the LDS religion. But now they're kind of taking that guy's title. Usually President Nelson would be seen as a seer, revelator, and translator. And now they also believe that they're going to be able to translate a new book similar to the Book of Mormon. For the third part of the mission, they want to establish places to place white camps. Some of them suspected to be in East Idaho, also expanding out. Well, we already know that Chad Daybell has mentioned that the Rexburg area is going to be included here, but it's also Salt Lake City and all the areas around Salt Lake. After all, Chad Daybell says that he has seen these visions, and that he and Lori are going to be some of the leaders that are going to be pushing these divine lands created for divine protection. They are going to be the leaders of the gathering, and Lori is already admitted that she is a gatherer. Normally, the way that the call out works is the president does this, but Chad and Lori basically just appointed themselves as presidency of the new church, the Church of the Firstborn, which gives them the authority to now make a call out. So what is the Church of the Firstborn? And this would be also their 4th mission, is creating this church. Well, it's basically a symbol of the highest degree of heaven, the celestial kingdom. And now Chad and Lori, it seems that they're wanting to translate something important. Is it the sealed portion of the Mormon book? There's mention in several of Chad's series, or I think what is it, Standing in Holy Places series, that Chad wrote about the discovery of these ancient plates that he will have to decipher. So I wanted to mention that email in case I forget to put it in there. And this is going to actually be emailed to Lori a couple of months from now. What's interesting is we know in 2008, Chad and Tammy filed bankruptcy. And according to Chad and Tammy, they claim that the books provided an annual income of only around $2,000. And around that time, that couple was making about a monthly income of $3,930.25. from their publishing company. Tammy's working and Chad is working as a grave digger, and the mortgage on their home is valued at that time about $135,000. Lori Vallow's niece, Melanie Boudreau, well, she's spending a lot of more time with Lori and learning about these very strange ideas. This is starting to affect the relationship between Brandon Boudreau and Melanie Boudreau. Around this time, the Book of Alma is one of Lori's favorite stories. The weird thing about Lori is she doesn't seem to understand the concept of money. She doesn't really seem to be all that interested in fancy houses or anything. But she needs a lot of money to keep up her lifestyle. So she kind of has this love-hate relationship with popularity and riches. Remember, she was in high school, she's a cheerleader. And according to family members, she's married several times just getting out of high school. She's in a beauty pageant. She's on a TV show called Wheel of Fortune. And after that, she set her sights on making her way in the ranks of the church, but that doesn't work out for her. And I believe, at least based off my research, and this is speculation, that Lori finds this new spotlight through these prepping groups, through preparing the people, and through authors. Lori wanted to write a book, so we believe that she might have been using Chad to get, shoot for higher goals and to be able to write that book. I mean, after all, during this time, Lori Vallow has her entire family, well, she's working on getting her whole entire family to believe that she's this prophetess. She has a few friends that will actually treat her as a prophet. She's talking to family members like her brother Adam Cox, her sister Summer Shiflett, her mother, her father, and she's telling them, I'm hearing these voices and I'm seeing these great deities. Her brother Alex Cox, he's going to be one of her biggest supporters. And her interest in priestcraft is only going to grow stronger each day that goes by. In the Book of Alma, priestcraft followers pretend to follow the true doctrine, while in reality, they are not. This is something Lori Vallow seems to mimic perfectly. In November of 2018, there's talk, I think it's on Nancy Grace. Julie Rowe claimed how our relationship went sour after a woman's husband intercepted the text and told Daybell he would go public with intimate messages if Daybell didn't leave his wife alone. A lot of people were very curious as to whether or not this was referring to Lori and Charles. We'll talk more on that a little bit later. The truth of the matter is this, I believe, is the day Lori Vallow seen Moroni in the temple is the day that things went haywire. What might be triggering this, and this isn't fact, guys, I've been trying to put this together the best I can. I believe there's a chance that her listening to all these podcasts, it was creating a lot of fear for her. And that might have been the thing that really got her going this horrible direction. This on top of the mental health neglect that she's had for a lot of years. You got to remember, she's had episodes where she's wanted to murder people before all this. And then finding Chad Daybell, the guy who wasn't smart enough to understand that this is not something you walk into and feed. But from the moment he met her at this Utah conference, he fell head over heels and would do whatever it took to keep her belonging to him. He sees this beautiful blonde come up to him. He has no idea who she is, what her background is, And he just falls for it. And as a man of God, you would have thought he would have known better. Lust is one of the most sinful things we need to look out for. It was like the devil went to this conference. He threw out one hook, a double-sided hook, and caught them both at the same time. Now, something you must understand is that Mormons do practice and do believe in the afterlife. And right now, he claims that he can talk to spirits and that his veil is open 24/7, meaning that he can access the world of the dead or spirits, around the clock. The problem is he's teaching these new ideas as part of the LDS doctrine. And here's something else that's really dangerous. So they teach that there's really no hell, there's only a spirit prison. So your time on earth, if you mess up, you're a bad person. You don't go to hell. You don't pay for your sins. You go to spirit prison and you're given another chance if you are allowed to try at being a good Mormon again. Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow are teaching multiple probations, and this is extremely dangerous. They're not just teaching, hey, I was probably Marilyn Monroe once in my life. They're teaching that they're coming back time and time and time again, and that if something happens to you, well, it's no big deal. You're just going to be able to come back. I wanted to go into more details on the 3 levels of heaven that the LDS believe, but we're not going to have time. But just know that the highest heaven, the LDS believe that if you go through your life being the most perfect Mormon, you can become a god or a goddess in the afterlife and even your own planet. So it's odd. If they don't believe in hell, then where does Satan come from? Well, that's another story. Won't have time to go into that either. But believe this, Lori knows of evil and that it exists. She will refer to him as Satan, Lucifer, the fallen angel of heaven, and, well, sometimes even the earth children of God. He is the king of all that is dark and sinful. And one of Lori's biggest problems is she believes that Satan is mischievous, and he wants to lead the most graceful to the defeat. They want them to fall flat on their face. And how she's living in this in this timeline, she's living as if she believes Satan is following her constantly and constantly throwing fiery darts at her. But what she might have got this from was Julie Rowe. Julie Rowe talks about Satan and how he likes to follow her. It's almost as these women are quite infatuated with Satan, or believe that Satan is infatuated with them. He is working very, very hard in using his power to deceive them or her and convince her to go against God. But to us, we're on the outside looking in, and it seems that Lori seems very confused about who is evil and who is good. Everything she says or does is like opposite day. Lori claims that her main goal is to seek to be closer to God. She's also looking for leadership and a way that she can become a leader. And boy, is she really being put to the test to resist what Satan is throwing at her at this time. Lori believes that her life is a test to show how loyal she is to God. Mike Stroud is one of her main go-to podcasters as well, but he's not going to be around much longer. And she has that in common with some of these people that she's meeting, like Melenie Gibb. They have a lot to talk about. They have a lot in common. Lori even invites Melenie Gibb over to the house. She meets several of Lori's family members, including Tylee Ryan. And she says it seems sometimes that Tylee is very upset and frustrated with Lori. According to Melenie Gibb, their relationship is very strained, and Tylee and Lori not working out too well. For her, she's saying she's not seeing their parental guidance working out too well for the kids either. She's having a lot of difficulties handling JJ. She's having several arguments with Charles. According to Melenie Gibb, Charles spends all his time just trying to please Lori, but it doesn't seem good enough. Now, according to Julie Rowe in a later interview, she says that Chad asked her what she knows about the 144,000. This means most likely that Chad is not into the 144 as much as you would have believed. However, Julie Rowe is talking about the second coming of Jesus Christ, the 144,000, more times than we can count on our fingers and toes. It's not even been a week since Chad and Lori have met, and the first evidence that caused harm to Charles Vallow was discovered in text messages between Lori and, I guess it was 11/3/18, and Zolima. Police were able to get their hands on this text message after Alex Cox passes away. Zolima tells Lori that God told her that she's here to protect Lori. But police don't really elaborate or share those, parts of this text with us. So remember, this is insane, right? They met October 26th. It's 8 days after these two meet. And they're talking about what they're saying. The first evidence to cause harm to Charles Vallow was discovered in this text message, 11/3/18. So the trial's going right now, so we may find out, about some of that. We don't know. But it's very early on that they're developing these special gifts. And so, like becoming protecting angels, being able to control weather. And Zolima is on board immediately along with Melenie Gibb. Christina Atwood says that she runs into Lori often at the temple. She invites Lori to come hang out with her and help her out with a few events, which we've already covered. And since Lori Vallow has met Melenie Gibb, which was around October 18th of 2018, they're hanging out a lot. They're making girl day trips. And Melanie says that she realizes that the two of these guys, well, they had a strong bond going on, more than a friend type bond. She said that her friend Lori is infatuated with Chad Daybell. And what's weird is Melenie Gibb says she's not even certain if she ever made a connection that Chad Daybell was the author of the books that she was reading. And Chad, well, he must be loving this because he's hanging out with these ladies in hotel rooms at the conference. And soon, everybody's going to be hanging out at Lori's house. At some point, which we don't have the exact date, Charles is talking to his sister, Kay Woodcock. He's telling her about this odd behavior of his wife. He begins to have concerns, but he kind of goes back and forth. If Lori seems like she's okay and she's happy, he tells everybody that he's made concern about this, not to worry about it. She's happy. She's okay. And then another day, if she's not okay, he complains. Melenie Gibb comes over to Lori's house another time where she meets Charles Vallow one weekend, and she says they have a barbecue. They say that Charles is pretty good at barbecuing. They talk a lot about religion, and while they're talking and eating, the kids are playing in the pool. She says she talks to Charles about church, and he seems to be quite excited about that conversation. But something she notices is that this couple is fighting a lot. Well, at least for Lori. She's just not happy with Charles, ever. So immediately, for Melenie Gibb, who says she's not much into drama, well, this is a lot of drama being thrown at her at once. And Melenie Gibb says she doesn't understand that contention between the two. She sees Lori cheating on her husband, right in front of her. Yet she's trying to be this very high valued Christian. And why would Melenie Gibb want to hang out with somebody like that? That's my question. Melenie Gibb says that it's somewhere around this time that she and Lori's hanging out at the temple in Phoenix, Arizona. That they're to seek answers for something, but they don't tell us what. Suddenly, Melenie Gibb says she feels this heat go all around her head. And she tells Lori to come fill her head. They're actually changing in the changing room. Lori fills her head and says, "It's happening." Melanie doesn't really elaborate what's happening, but it's some kind of power that is happening, something miraculous in this temple. From there, Lori seems to be able to assert herself with the power to ordain and recruit Melenie Gibb as part of the 144,000. Her friend Zelima has seen the Lord as well, and they believe that they have this greater mission, and they have to give and carry out for this Church of the Newborn. The ladies are excited because they have planned a big event, a fireside at Lori's for a preparing a people conference approaching around November 16th. And this is where I'm going to stop for today. If you like my work, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and make sure you comment. You can donate to my Patreon at Chasing a Murderer. I can't describe to you how hard I've worked on this, so if you like it, please show it. Thank you guys. Love you, and I'll see you soon.